Rain came down in sheets over the dusty streets of Yarrington, Nevada, turning the packed earth into rivers of mud. And that was when Cole, Yates saw her sitting alone on the wooden steps of the abandoned mercantile, soaked through to the bone and shivering like a leaf in winter wind. He pulled his horse to a stop, water streaming from the brim of his hat, and squinted through the downpour at the woman, who seemed to have given up on finding shelter. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, and her simple cotton dress clung to her frame in a way that made him look away respectfully. Something about the way she sat there, arms wrapped around herself, shoulders slumped forward, told him she was not just caught in the rain but caught in something far worse. Cole dismounted, his boots splashing in the mud as he approached slowly. He had learned in his 30 years not to startle people, especially not women who looked as lost as this one did. "Miss," he called out over the sound of the rain hammering against the building fronts. "You all right there?" She lifted her head, and even through the rain, he could see her eyes were red from crying. She could not have been more than 25, with delicate features that spoke of a gentler life than what the Nevada territory usually offered. She did not answer him, just stared with a blank expression that worried him more than tears would have. "You cannot stay out here," Cole said, coming closer. "Storm like this, you will catch your death. I've got a place just down the road, nothing fancy, but it is dry and warm." Still, she did not speak, but when he extended his hand, she looked at it for a long moment before placing her trembling fingers in his palm. Her hand was ice cold despite it being July of 1882, and that decided him completely. He helped her to her feet, noticing how unsteady she was, and guided her toward his horse. "Can you ride?" he asked. She nodded, the first real response he had gotten from her. Cole helped her up into the saddle, then swung up behind her, reaching around to take the reins. She was shaking so hard he could feel it through his shirt, and he urged the horse into a quick trot toward his ranch at the edge of town. The ride took only 10 minutes, but it felt longer with the rain lashing at them, and the woman silent as stone in front of him. His ranch was modest, a simple house he had built himself 5 years ago when he decided to stop drifting and put down roots. The barn stood beside it, and he could see smoke still rising from the chimney, meaning the fire he had left that morning was still going. He helped her down and practically carried her to the front door, pushing it open and bringing her into the warmth. The main room served as both kitchen and living space, with a stone fireplace against one wall that was crackling with orange flames. He guided her to the chair nearest the fire and went to fetch blankets from his bedroom. When he returned, she was still sitting exactly as he had left her, staring at the flames with that same vacant expression. Cole draped 2 thick wool blankets around her shoulders and knelt down to look at her face. "Miss, I am going to make some coffee. You just sit tight and get warm." He moved to the stove, stoking the coals and putting the pot on to boil. His hands worked automatically, measuring out the grounds, adding water, but his mind was on the woman behind him. Something terrible had happened to her, that much was clear. He had seen that look before, during the war, on the faces of soldiers who had seen too much death. The coffee finished brewing and he poured 2 cups, bringing one to her. "Here," he said gently, "drink this. It will help." She took the cup with both hands, and he was relieved to see her fingers wrap around it, seeking the warmth. She brought it to her lips and took a small sip, then another. Color was starting to return to her face, though she still had not said a word. Cole pulled up another chair and sat across from her, giving her space but staying close enough to help if she needed it. "My name is Cole Yates. This is my ranch. You are safe here." Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tessa Coleman, Miss Coleman," he acknowledged. "Can you tell me what happened? Why were you sitting out in the rain like that?" Her eyes filled with tears and she looked down at the cup in her hands. "I have nowhere else to go." The words were so simple, so devastated that they hit Cole square in the chest. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Everyone has somewhere to go." "Not me," she said, and a tear spilled down her cheek. "Not anymore." He waited, sensing she needed time to gather herself. The rain continued to pound against the roof, a steady drumming that filled the silence between them. After several long minutes, Teresa took a deep breath and began to speak. "I came here from San Francisco 3 months ago," she said. "My father arranged for me to marry a man named Gerald Hutchins. He owned a saloon in town and some mining claims. Father said it was a good match, that Mr. Hutchins was prosperous and established." She paused, taking another sip of coffee. "I did not want to marry him. I did not even know him. But father had debts, and Mr. Hutchins had paid them in exchange for my hand." Cole felt his jaw tighten. He had heard stories like this before. Women traded like property to settle accounts. It made his blood boil every time. "The marriage was not happy," Teresa continued, her voice growing stronger now that she had started talking. "Gerald was cruel. He drank heavily and had a terrible temper. He kept me locked in the rooms above the saloon most of the time. Said a wife should be seen only when he wanted to show her off." Her hands trembled and coffee sloshed in the cup. Cole reached out and steadied it for her. 3 days ago, Gerald got into a fight with a card player who accused him of cheating. Things got violent and Gerald pulled a gun. She closed her eyes, the memory clearly painful. The other man was faster. Gerald died right there in his own saloon. "I am sorry," Cole said, though he was not sure he meant it for a man like that. "I am not," Teresa said, opening her eyes and looking directly at him. "Is that terrible?" "I am not sorry he is dead. I am only sorry I am left with nothing. The saloon and the mining claims all went to Gerald's brother, who arrived from Sacramento yesterday. He said I had no legal claim to anything since we had only been married 2 months. He gave me until this morning to leave the rooms." "Where is your family?" Cole asked. "My father died last year. That is why he arranged the marriage before he passed. My mother died when I was a child. I have no siblings, no other relatives that I know of." She set the coffee cup down on the small table beside the chair and pulled the blankets tighter around herself. "I sold what little jewelry I had to buy a stagecoach ticket back to San Francisco, but the coach is not scheduled to come through for another week. I had enough money for 3 nights at the boarding house, but the proprietor said this morning that she needed the room for a family coming in. She refunded me for the nights I had not used, but it is not enough for anywhere else in town." "So you just sat down in the rain?" Cole asked, trying to understand. "I did not know what else to do," she said simply. "I sat down to think and then it started raining and I just could not find the will to move. Everything felt so pointless." Cole stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the storm. The rain was beginning to ease up, though the sky was still dark with clouds. He thought about this woman, this Tessa Coleman, and how life had dealt her one bad hand after another. He thought about his own ranch, too big for one man, too quiet in the evenings. He thought about the spare bedroom that sat empty, the kitchen that echoed when he cooked meals for only himself. "You can stay here," he said, turning back to face her. Teresa looked up at him, surprise clear on her face. "What?" "Until the stagecoach comes," Cole clarified. "You need a place to stay, and I have the room. It is not charity. I could use some help around here if you are willing to work. The place is a mess, and I am a terrible cook. You could earn your keep and have a roof over your head." "Why would you do that?" she asked suspiciously. "You do not know me." "I know enough," Cole said. "I know you have had a rough time, and I know what it is like to have nowhere to go. I drifted for years after the war before I settled here. People helped me along the way. I figure I can return the favor." Teresa studied him for a long moment, and Cole tried not to fidget under her scrutiny. He was not the most handsome man, he knew that. His face was weathered from years in the sun, and he had a scar above his left eyebrow from a horse kick when he was younger. But he kept himself clean and his word honest, and he hoped she could see that much in him. "Just until the stagecoach comes?" she asked. "Just until then," he confirmed, though even as he said it, something inside him wished it could be longer. "No strings attached. You work, you eat, you sleep in a proper bed. When the coach comes, you go on your way to San Francisco." She nodded slowly. "All right. Thank you, Mr. Yates." "Cole," he corrected. "If we are going to be sharing a house for a week, might as well use first names. What do folks call you?" "Teresa or something shorter." "Tessa," she said quietly. "My mother used to call me Tessa." "Tessa it is then," Cole said with a smile. "Now let us get you into some dry clothes. I have got some old shirts and trousers that will swim on you, but they are better than sitting in that wet dress. The bedroom is through that door. You can change in there, and I will hang your dress by the fire to dry." Tessa stood up, still wrapped in the blankets, and made her way to the bedroom. Cole busied himself by the fire, adding more wood and stoking the flames higher. He heard the door close, and tried not to think about the woman changing in his bedroom, about how her presence had already changed the feel of his house. It had been a long time since he had spent any real time with a woman. There was Margaret at the general store who flirted with him when he came in for supplies, and the widow Patterson who had made it clear she would welcome his courtship. But Cole had never felt drawn to either of them. He valued his solitude, his simple life of horses and cattle, and the occasional trip to town for supplies and whiskey. But as Tessa emerged from the bedroom wearing his oversized shirt and trousers, her hair starting to dry in waves around her face, Cole felt something shift in his chest. She looked vulnerable and strong all at once, and there was something in her dark eyes that called to him in a way he could not quite name. "They fit terribly," she said, holding up the pants that she had to roll several times at the ankles. "But they are dry," Cole pointed out with a smile. "Hand me your dress, and I will hang it here." She passed him the soaked garment, and he draped it over a chair near the fire. "Are you hungry? I have got some beans and salt pork I can heat up, and there is bread from yesterday that is still good." "I have not eaten since yesterday morning," Tessa admitted. "I spent my last bit of money on the coffee at the cafe." "Then sit yourself down, and I will get some food ready," Cole said, moving to the kitchen area. He worked quickly, heating up the beans and slicing the bread, adding some dried apples to the plate for sweetness. It was simple fare, but it was filling, and he watched with satisfaction as Tessa ate with genuine appetite. They sat in companionable silence, the rain outside finally stopping and giving way to the sounds of evening birds. Cole found himself studying her when she was not looking, noticing the way she held her fork, the graceful line of her neck. He caught himself and looked away, reminding himself that she would be gone in a week. "Tell me about the ranch," Tessa said after she finished eating. "What do you raise here?" "Horses mostly," Cole said, glad for the distraction of conversation. "Some cattle, but the horses are my main business. I break and train them, then sell them to ranchers and the army. It is good work, honest work." "Do you enjoy it?" "I do," Cole said, considering. "Every horse is different, has its own personality. It is like a puzzle, figuring out what each one needs to trust you. Some are easy, some take months of patient work. But when you finally connect with them, when they let you ride them and they are not afraid anymore, it is one of the best feelings in the world." Tessa smiled, the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face. "You must be a patient man." "I learned to be," Cole said, "was not always that way. I was pretty wild when I was younger, always rushing into things. The horses taught me to slow down, pay attention." "How long have you had the ranch?" "5 years now. Before that, I worked for other people, moved around a lot. But I saved my money and bought this land. It is not much, but it is mine." He felt a surge of pride saying it. The ranch represented everything he had worked for, his proof that he could build something lasting. They talked until the light outside faded completely and Cole lit the lamps. He showed Tessa the bedroom, apologizing for the plain furnishings. "I will take the sofa out here," he said. "You take the bed." "I cannot take your bed," Tessa protested. "You can and you will," Cole said firmly. "I have slept on worse than that sofa, believe me. Besides, you have had a hard few days. You need proper rest." She looked like she wanted to argue but was too tired. "Thank you, Cole, for everything. I do not know what would have happened if you had not found me." "Good thing I came along then," he said lightly, though the thought of her sitting in the rain until nightfall, vulnerable to any passing stranger with ill intentions, made his stomach turn. "Sleep well, Tessa." She closed the bedroom door, and Cole set about making up a bed on the sofa with extra blankets. It was not particularly comfortable, but he had meant what he said about sleeping in worse places. He lay there in the darkness, listening to the house settle around him, aware of Tessa's presence in a way that made the ranch feel entirely different. He wondered about her life in San Francisco, about the father who had sold her to pay his debts, about the weeks she had spent locked away above a saloon with a cruel drunk. He wondered what dreams she had given up, what hopes she still carried. And he wondered why the thought of her leaving in a week made him feel hollow inside. Sleep came eventually, but his dreams were full of dark-haired women and rain. Cole woke at dawn out of habit, his body trained to rise with the sun after years of ranch work. He stood and stretched, working the kinks out of his back from the too-short sofa, and moved quietly to the stove to start coffee. He was just getting the fire going when he heard the bedroom door open. Tessa emerged, still wearing his oversized clothes, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning," Cole replied. "Coffee will be ready in a few minutes. Did you sleep all right?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "The quiet here, it is peaceful. In town, there was always noise from the saloon, people shouting and fighting at all hours." Cole nodded, pouring water into the coffee pot. "That is one thing I love about this place. Nothing but the sounds of the animals and the wind. Gets to some people, the isolation, but I have always found it calming." "What can I do to help?" Tessa asked. "You said I could earn my keep." "Well, if you meant what you said about me being a terrible cook, maybe you could take over breakfast duty," Cole suggested with a grin. "I can manage coffee and beans, but anything more complicated tends to end badly." Tessa smiled and moved to the kitchen area, examining the supplies he had available. "I can work with this. Do you have any eggs? Out in the chicken coop behind the house. I will go gather some." Cole grabbed a basket and headed outside, grateful for the fresh morning air. The storm had cleared completely, leaving everything washed clean and smelling of wet earth. He collected half a dozen eggs from the cranky hens and brought them back inside. By the time he returned, Tessa had organized the kitchen and was slicing potatoes. She moved with quiet efficiency, and Cole found himself content to watch her work while he drank his coffee. She cooked the potatoes in a skillet with some onions, then scrambled the eggs with a bit of milk and butter. The simple meal smelled better than anything Cole had made for himself in years. They ate together at the small table, and Cole found himself talking more than he usually did, telling her about the horses he was currently training, about his plans to expand the barn next year. Tessa listened attentively, asking questions that showed she was genuinely interested. What did you do in San Francisco? Cole asked. Before your father arranged the marriage, I worked as a seamstress, Tessa said. I had a small shop with 2 other women. We made dresses for society ladies, did alterations and repairs. I enjoyed it, being able to create beautiful things. Her expression grew sad. I had to give it up when I came here. Gerald did not think it was appropriate for his wife to work. That is a shame, Cole said. A skill like that, it seems wasteful not to use it. Yes, Tessa agreed quietly. It did feel wasteful. After breakfast, Cole showed her around the property. The barn housed 6 horses currently, including his own mount, Thunder, a sturdy buckskin with a stubborn streak. Tessa was cautious around the horses at first, but when Cole introduced her to a gentle mare named Bess, she relaxed and stroked the horse's nose. She is beautiful, Tessa said. Bess is one of my favorites, Cole admitted. She was a wild Mustang when I got her 3 years ago. Took me 4 months to win her trust, but now she is as gentle as a lamb. I use her to help train the others, show them that humans are not something to fear. They walked the property line, and Cole pointed out the various features of his land. The creek that ran through the eastern edge, providing fresh water year-round. The south pasture where he let the horses run free during the day. The small vegetable garden he tried and mostly failed to maintain behind the house. That garden needs help, Tessa observed, looking at the overgrown weeds and struggling plants. I know, Cole said sheepishly. I cannot seem to keep anything alive in it except weeds. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, keeps threatening to come over and fix it herself out of pity. I could tend to it while I am here, Tessa offered. My mother taught me to garden when I was young. It would give me something useful to do. That would be mighty kind of you, Cole said, pleased at the prospect of having a functional garden. They spent the morning working together, Cole showing Tessa where the tools were kept and what supplies he had available. She dove into the garden with determination, pulling weeds and identifying which plants were salvageable. Cole worked with the horses, but he found his attention constantly drifting to where Tessa knelt among the vegetables, dirt on her hands, and the sun bringing out reddish highlights in her dark hair. Around midday, Mrs. Chen appeared at the property line, her small frame carrying a covered basket. She was in her 60s, a Chinese immigrant who had come to Nevada with her husband during the mining boom. Mr. Chen had died 5 years ago, but Mrs. Chen had stayed, running a small farm next to Cole's ranch. She was sharp as a tack and took no nonsense from anyone. Cole Yates, she called out. Who is this girl in your garden? Cole walked over, wiping sweat from his forehead. Mrs. Chen, this is Miss Tessa Coleman. She is staying here for a week until the stagecoach comes. Tessa, this is my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen's sharp eyes took in Tessa's appearance, lingering on Cole's oversized clothes. A week, you say, and where did you find this girl? In town yesterday during the storm, Cole said, keeping his tone neutral. She needed a place to stay. Mrs. Chen said, a sound loaded with skepticism. But then she turned to Tessa with a smile. You like dumplings, girl? I have never had them, Tessa admitted, standing up and brushing dirt from her knees. Never had dumplings. Mrs. Chen looked scandalized. Cole, you bring her to my house for lunch. I teach her about real food. Cole glanced at Tessa, who nodded. We would be honored, Mrs. Chen. They followed the older woman to her property, a tidy farm with neat rows of vegetables and a small house that smelled wonderfully of spices. Mrs. Chen bustled around her kitchen, and despite her protests that they help, she shooed them to the table and served them bowls of steaming dumplings in a savory broth. The food was delicious, unlike anything Tessa had tasted before, and she said as much. Mrs. Chen beamed with pride. Your cowboy, he only knows beans and salt pork. I try to teach him, but he is hopeless in kitchen." "He is not my cowboy," Tessa said quickly, her cheeks flushing. Mrs. Chen waved a hand dismissively. "You stay in his house, wear his clothes, tend his garden. Sounds like your cowboy to me." Cole cleared his throat, his own face feeling warm. "Mrs. Chen, Tessa is just helping out while she is here. She is headed to San Francisco next week." "San Francisco?" Mrs. Chen frowned. "That city is too big, too loud. What is in San Francisco?" "I used to live there," Tessa explained. "I am going back to try to restart my life." Mrs. Chen said again. "Sometimes best life is not where you think you find it." She looked meaningfully at Cole, who pretended to be very interested in his dumplings. After lunch, Mrs. Chen sent them home with a basket of vegetables from her garden and instructions for Tessa on how to save Cole's pitiful plants. As they walked back to the ranch, Cole felt compelled to apologize. "Sorry about that," he said. "Mrs. Chen means well, but she can be a bit much sometimes." "I liked her," Tessa said with a smile. "She reminds me of my mother, actually, strong and opinionated." "That is Mrs. Chen in a nutshell," Cole agreed. That evening, Tessa cooked dinner using the vegetables Mrs. Chen had given them, creating a stir-fry that made Cole close his eyes in appreciation. "You are a miracle worker," he said. "I have had these same ingredients in my kitchen for weeks and never made anything this good with them." "It is all in how you prepare them," Tessa said, looking pleased with his reaction. And Mrs. Chen's instructions were very detailed. They fell into an easy pattern over the next few days. Cole would wake early and start the coffee. Then Tessa would take over making breakfast while he went to check on the animals. They would work through the morning, Cole with his horses and Tessa in the garden or cleaning the house, which desperately needed a woman's touch. Afternoons they would often work together, and Cole found himself teaching her about the horses, showing her how to read their body language and gain their trust. Tessa proved to be a natural with the animals. She was patient and gentle, never forcing anything, and the horses responded to her with a calmness that impressed Cole. By the fourth day, she was helping him exercise the horses, riding Bess around the property while Cole worked with a particularly stubborn stallion. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk, sharing stories of their lives. Cole told her about growing up in Missouri, about fighting in the war when he was barely 18, about the years of drifting afterward. Tessa told him about her childhood in San Francisco, about learning to sew from her mother, about the father who had been loving when sober but mean when drunk. "I think that is why I tolerated Gerald for as long as I did," she said one night. "I was used to walking on eggshells around an unpredictable man. It felt normal, even though I knew it was not right." "You deserved better than that," Cole said firmly. "Any woman deserves better than that." "I know that now," Tessa said softly. "Being here, seeing how you live, how you treat people and animals with respect and kindness, it has reminded me that not all men are like my father or Gerald." Their eyes met across the firelight, and Cole felt that pull again, that sense of connection that went deeper than mere attraction. He wanted to reach out and take her hand to tell her that she could stay, that she did not have to go to San Francisco. But the week was almost up, and she had made her plans. He had no right to ask her to change them. On the sixth day, Cole rode into town to check on the stagecoach schedule. The clerk at the station confirmed that the coach would be coming through the next afternoon. Cole bought Tessa's ticket, paying the difference from what she had, and rode back to the ranch with a heavy heart. He found Tessa in the garden, harvesting vegetables for dinner. She looked up as he approached, shading her eyes against the afternoon sun. "How was town?" "Coach comes tomorrow at 2, Cole said, dismounting. I got your ticket. Tomorrow, Tessa repeated, and was it his imagination, or did she sound disappointed? That came quickly. Time tends to do that, Cole said, though the week had felt both incredibly fast and achingly slow. I figure we should take you in around noon, make sure you do not miss it. Yes, that makes sense, Tessa said, but she did not move, just stood there holding a basket of tomatoes and looking at him with an expression he could not quite read. That night, dinner was quieter than usual. They both seemed lost in their own thoughts, the reality of her departure settling over them like a blanket. Cole found himself memorizing little details about her, the way she hummed softly while she cooked, the laugh lines at the corners of her eyes, the gentle way she moved through his house that had somehow become their house over the past week. After dinner, they sat by the fire as had become their custom, but the silence between them felt different, weighted with things unsaid. Finally, Tessa spoke. I do not want to go. Cole's heart jumped in his chest. What? To San Francisco, she clarified, turning to look at him. I do not want to go. I thought I did. I thought starting over there made sense, going back to what I knew. But this week, being here with you, it has felt more like home than anywhere I have been in years. Tessa, Cole started, hardly daring to hope. I am not asking you for anything, she said quickly. I know this was just supposed to be temporary, a place to stay until I could move on, and if you want me to go, I will. But if there is any chance you might want me to stay, then I would like to. I could continue to work for you, earn my keep properly. I am a hard worker, and I think I have proven I can be useful around here. Cole stood up and crossed to where she sat, kneeling down in front of her chair so they were at eye level. Tessa Coleman, I have wanted you to stay since the second day you were here. I have been dreading tomorrow like it was a death sentence. If you want to stay, there is nothing in this world that would make me happier. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Really? Really, he confirmed. But not as my employee. I do not want you working for me like hired help. I want you to stay because you want to be here, because this is your home too. It feels like home, Tessa said, reaching out to touch his face. You feel like home. Cole covered her hand with his own, turning his head to kiss her palm. I have been falling in love with you all week, he admitted. I told myself I had no right, that you would be leaving, but I could not help it. Everything about you, Tessa, everything you are, it just fits somehow. It fits with me, with this place, with the life I have built here. I love you too, Tessa whispered. I think I started loving you when you found me in the rain and saw someone worth saving. You have been so kind, so patient. You have shown me what it means to be treated with respect and care. How could I not love you? Cole leaned forward and kissed her, a gentle brush of lips that sent warmth flooding through his entire body. She kissed him back, her fingers threading through his hair, and for a long moment the world narrowed to just the two of them and the connection sparking between them. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, Cole rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said again. Stay with me. Not as my employee or my house guest, but as my partner. Build this life with me. I know it has only been a week, and maybe people will think we are crazy, but I have never been more sure of anything. Yes, Tessa said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I will stay. I will build this life with you. They stayed up late that night, making plans and dreaming out loud about the future. Tessa wanted to start a small seamstress business from the ranch, maybe ride into town once a week to take orders and deliver finished pieces. Cole wanted to expand the horse operation, maybe hire on some help so he did not have to do everything himself. They talked about adding onto the house, creating a real bedroom for Cole, so Tessa could have the current one as a sewing room during the day. We should probably get married, Cole said at one point, almost shyly. I mean, if you want to. I know your last marriage was not a good experience, so I would understand if you wanted to wait. I want to marry you, Tessa said firmly. My last marriage was a business arrangement between my father and a terrible man. Marrying you would be completely different. It would be my choice, made freely, because I love you and want to spend my life with you. Then let us do it properly, Cole said. Let me court you the right way, take you to dinner in town, maybe a dance if there is one. I want people to know you are not just some woman staying at my ranch. I want them to know you are the woman I love, the woman I am going to marry. Tessa smiled, her eyes shining. I would like that. Though I think Mrs. Chen is going to say she knew all along. Oh, she absolutely is, Cole agreed with a laugh. The next morning, instead of preparing to take Tessa to town for the stagecoach, they rode in together to let the station know she would not be boarding. The clerk gave them a knowing smile and processed the refund without comment. News traveled fast in a small town, and by the time they made it to the general store for supplies, several people had already heard that Cole Yates had a woman living with him. Most of the reactions were positive. Margaret from the general store looked disappointed but wished them well. A few of the older ladies in town gave Tessa critical looks, but Mrs. Patterson, the widow, came up to them on the street and took Tessa's hands in hers. I heard about your situation with Gerald Hutchins, she said kindly. That was a terrible thing, how he treated you. I am glad you have found happiness with Cole. He is a good man. Thank you, Tessa said, touched by the older woman's warmth. They stopped by Mrs. Chen's farm on the way home, and the older woman took one look at them and started laughing. I knew it. I told my chickens yesterday. I said that girl is not going anywhere. You two are too much in love. You were right, Cole admitted. Tessa is staying. We are going to get married. About time, Mrs. Chen said. Now you come inside. I teach Tessa how to make proper wedding dumplings. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the following weeks. Cole continued his work with the horses, and Tessa proved invaluable in helping him, especially with the gentler work of getting the animals comfortable with being handled. Her calm presence had a soothing effect on even the most skittish horses. She also set up her sewing operation, using the bedroom as a workspace during the day as they had discussed. Word spread quickly that there was a seamstress at the Yates ranch, and soon Tessa had a steady stream of orders. She made dresses and shirts, did repairs and alterations, and her work was so fine that women started coming from neighboring towns to commission pieces from her. Cole built her a proper work table and bought her the best sewing supplies he could find in Yerington. Watching her bent over her work, her face concentrated and content, filled him with a pride and love that sometimes overwhelmed him. She had brought a light into his life that he had not even known was missing. They set a wedding date for the end of September, giving them 2 months to prepare. Mrs. Chen insisted on hosting the ceremony at her farm, which had more space for guests. Cole invited everyone he knew, wanting to celebrate openly and proudly. Tessa was more reserved, having few friends in town yet, but she was touched by how many people from the community came by to wish them well and offer help with preparations. The wedding was small but beautiful. Tessa wore a dress she had made herself, a simple but elegant design in cream-colored silk that Cole had special ordered from San Francisco. She carried wildflowers from Mrs. Chen's garden, and her face glowed with happiness as she walked toward Cole across Mrs. Chen's yard. Cole wore his best suit, the one he had bought years ago and almost never had occasion to wear. He felt nervous as he watched Tessa approach, overwhelmed by how beautiful she was, and how lucky he was that she had chosen him. The ceremony was performed by the circuit preacher who came through Yerington once a month. As they exchanged vows, Cole held Tessa's hands and looked into her eyes, meaning every word he said. He promised to love her, protect her, support her dreams, and build a life with her that would make them both happy. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed Tessa to the cheers and applause of their friends and neighbors. Mrs. Chen had tears running down her face, and even some of the rough cowboys who had come to celebrate were wiping at their eyes. The celebration lasted into the evening, with food and music and dancing. Cole was not much of a dancer, but he held Tessa in his arms and swayed to the music, not caring that he probably looked foolish. She was his wife now, and the joy on her face was worth any amount of embarrassment. As the sun set and the party began to wind down, Cole and Tessa thanked their guests and rode back to their ranch. It felt different now, knowing they were truly building a life together as husband and wife. Cole carried Tessa over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the main room. "Welcome home, Mrs. Yates," he said softly. "I have been home for months," Tessa replied, reaching up to cup his face. "But now it is official. Now it is forever." "Forever," Cole agreed, and kissed her deeply. Their first year of marriage was full of hard work and deep contentment. The ranch prospered, with Cole's reputation as a horse trainer growing throughout the region. Tessa's sewing business also flourished, and she was able to save enough money to buy a proper sewing machine, which made her work faster and more efficient. They added onto the house that winter, building a separate workroom for Tessa so she no longer had to use the bedroom. Cole also built a larger barn and hired a young man named Peter to help with the daily ranch work. This gave Cole more time to focus on the training, which was the part of the work he enjoyed most. But the greatest joy came in early spring when Tessa realized she was pregnant. She told Cole one evening after dinner, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Cole felt like his heart might burst from his chest. He dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her waist, pressing his face against her middle. "A baby," he said in wonder. "We are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Tessa asked, running her fingers through his hair. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Cole said, looking up at her with tears in his eyes. "I love you so much, Tessa. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for everything." The pregnancy progressed well, though Tessa had some difficult days in the early months where she could barely keep food down. Cole was attentive and worried, hovering over her until she finally had to shoo him away to get some work done. Mrs. Cheng came by frequently with broths and teas that helped settle Tessa's stomach, and she gave advice based on her own experiences raising 3 children back in China. As Tessa's belly grew, Cole found himself constantly amazed by the changes in her body, by the life growing inside her. He would place his hands on her stomach and feel the baby kick, and it would fill him with such overwhelming love that he sometimes did not know what to do with the emotion. They prepared the spare room as a nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow and building a cradle from oak wood. Tessa sewed tiny clothes and blankets, and Cole carved wooden toys during the evenings. They argued cheerfully about names, each having strong opinions about what their child should be called. "If it is a boy, I want to name him James, after my father," Cole said one night. Tessa wrinkled her nose. "Your father was a drunk who abandoned your family when you were 10. "Fair point," Cole conceded. "What about Robert? That is a strong name." "Robert Yates," Tessa tried out. "I like it, and if it is a girl you choose," Cole said, "pick something that means something to you." Tessa thought for a moment. "My mother's name was Elizabeth. I always loved it. We could call her Eliza for short." "Eliza Yates," Cole said with a smile. "Perfect." The baby came in early December during a cold snap that had ice forming on the windows. The labor was long and difficult, and Cole paced the main room anxiously while Mrs. Chen and the midwife, Mrs. Morrison, attended to Tessa in the bedroom. Her cries of pain tore at him, and he felt helpless in a way he had never experienced before. Finally, after what felt like days but was really only 12 hours, he heard a new sound, the thin, wavering cry of a newborn. Cole's heart leapt, and moments later Mrs. Chen emerged from the bedroom with a smile on her face. "You have a son," she announced. "A strong, healthy boy. And your wife is tired but well." Cole rushed past her into the bedroom where Tessa lay propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle, and as Cole approached, she pulled back the blanket to reveal their son's face. He was red and wrinkled, with a surprising amount of dark hair, and Cole thought he was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Robert," Tessa said softly. "Our Robert." Cole sat carefully on the edge of the bed and reached out to stroke his son's impossibly soft cheek. "He is perfect," he whispered. "You are perfect. I love you both so much." Fatherhood changed Cole in ways he had not anticipated. The fierce protectiveness he felt toward his son was almost overwhelming. Every cry in the night sent him rushing to the nursery, even though Tessa was usually faster. He would stand over the cradle and watch Robert sleep, amazed that he had helped create this tiny person. As Robert grew, Cole was enchanted by every milestone. The first smile, the first laugh, the first time Robert wrapped his tiny hand around Cole's finger. Tessa would often find them together, Cole talking to their son about the horses or the ranch, as if the baby could understand every word. "You are a natural father," she told him one afternoon, watching as Cole gently bounced Robert in his arms while checking on the horses. "I never thought I would be," Cole admitted. "Never thought I would have this kind of life at all, but now I cannot imagine anything else." Life continued its steady rhythm. Robert grew into a curious, happy child who toddled after his father around the ranch as soon as he could walk. When he was 2, Tessa discovered she was pregnant again, and this time they welcomed a daughter they named Eliza. With Tessa's dark eyes and a surprisingly determined personality, even as an infant. Cole was endlessly patient with both children, teaching them about the animals and the land with the same gentle persistence he used with the horses. Robert showed an early aptitude for ranch work, while Eliza seemed more interested in following her mother around and playing with the fabric scraps from the sewing room. Mrs. Chen became like a grandmother to the children, always ready with treats and stories. Peter, the ranch hand Cole had hired years ago, proved himself so reliable and trustworthy that Cole made him a partner in the business. With the extra help, Cole was able to spend more time with his family, which was exactly what he wanted. The years passed, marked by the seasons and the growth of the children. Tessa's sewing business remained successful, and she eventually took on an apprentice, a young woman from town who wanted to learn the trade. Cole's reputation as a horse trainer spread throughout Nevada and into California, and he had more business than he could handle. When Robert was 8 and Eliza was 6, Tessa found herself pregnant again, much to their surprise. Cole joked that they were going to need an even bigger house, but he set about adding more rooms with enthusiasm. Their third child was another son, whom they named Thomas, and he completed their family perfectly. Through it all, Cole never forgot the day he had found Tessa sitting in the rain, looking like she had given up on the world. He would tell the story sometimes, when the children were older and asked how their parents had met. He would describe the storm, the way Tessa had looked so lost, and how bringing her home had changed his entire life. "Your mother brought me joy," he would say, smiling at Tessa across the dinner table. "More joy than I ever thought possible." She turned this house into a home and filled my life with love and laughter and purpose. Finding her that day was the best thing that ever happened to me." Tessa would blush and tell him he was exaggerating, but her eyes would shine with the same love she had felt on their wedding day. Their children would groan at their parents' obvious affection for each other, but secretly they loved it, loved knowing they came from such a strong foundation of love. As Cole and Tessa grew older, they watched their children grow into capable, kind adults. Robert took over more and more of the ranch operations, showing the same patient skill with horses that his father had. Eliza, true to her childhood interests, became a talented seamstress like her mother, eventually opening her own shop in town. Thomas, the youngest, surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, dedicating himself to educating the children of Yerington and the surrounding area. When grandchildren started arriving, Cole and Tessa embraced their new roles with enthusiasm. The ranch house, which had grown over the years to accommodate their family, was always full of noise and activity. Sunday dinners became a tradition, with the whole family gathering to eat and share stories. Mrs. Chen lived to be 92, sharp and opinionated to the end. When she passed, Tessa and Cole grieved deeply for the woman who had been such an important part of their lives. They buried her next to her husband on her own land, as she had requested, and Cole planted a garden of Chinese vegetables there that he tended carefully in her memory. As Cole entered his 60s, he began to slow down, letting Robert and Peter handle more of the day-to-day ranch work. He spent his time teaching his grandchildren about horses, passing on the knowledge he had accumulated over a lifetime. Tessa, too, stepped back from her sewing business, letting Eliza and the apprentices take on most of the orders, though she still enjoyed working on special projects. They would sit together on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the land they had built their life on, and reflect on all the years behind them. Cole would take Tessa's hand, noting how it fit in his just as perfectly as it had the first time he held it, and feel overwhelmed with gratitude. "You ever regret it?" he asked her one evening. "Staying here instead of going back to San Francisco?" "Not for a single moment," Tessa said firmly. "That day you found me in the rain, I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing left to live for. But you showed me I was wrong. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me love. How could I possibly regret that?" "I was so afraid you would leave," Cole admitted. "That week you stayed here, I kept thinking about how empty the house would be when you were gone. I did not know how I was going to go back to living alone." "You brought me inside from the rain," Tessa said, squeezing his hand. "And I brought you joy. That is what you always say." "It is true," Cole said. "You brought me more joy than I ever imagined possible. Every day with you has been a gift." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as their grandchildren played in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. The ranch looked different than it had all those years ago when Cole had been a lonely bachelor struggling to maintain a garden. Now it was alive with family and purpose, a testament to what love and dedication could build. In their later years, when Cole's joints ached from decades of ranch work, and Tessa's eyes grew tired from years of close sewing, they remained devoted to each other. Cole would help Tessa when her arthritis made it hard to button her dress. Tessa would massage Cole's shoulders when the old war wounds pained him. They had grown old together, their bodies showing the wear of long lives well lived, but their love remained as strong as ever. Cole was 73 when he began to feel his health declining. Nothing specific, just a general weariness that told him his time was growing short. He did not fear death, having lived a full and happy life, but he worried about leaving Tessa. They had been together for over 40 years, and the thought of her being alone pained him more than any physical ailment. "Promise me you will be all right," he said to her one night as they lay in bed together. "When I am gone, promise me you will be all right." "You are not going anywhere," Tessa said, but there were tears in her voice. "Eventually I will," Cole said gently. "We both know that. I just need to know you will be all right." "I will have our children and grandchildren," Tessa said. "I will have all the memories we made together. I will have the life we built. I will be sad, Cole Yates, sadder than I have words to express. But I will be all right because you taught me how to be strong. You taught me that I was worth something, that I deserved love and happiness. That is a gift I will carry with me until we meet again." Cole pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. "I love you," he whispered. "I have loved you from that first day in the rain, and I will love you beyond the end of everything." "And I love you," Tessa whispered back. "Always." Cole lived another 2 years, long enough to see his youngest grandson born, long enough to celebrate his and Tessa's 45th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. He passed peacefully in his sleep one spring morning, Tessa beside him as she had been for so many years. The funeral was attended by what seemed like half of Nevada. Cole had been well known and respected throughout the region, his reputation for fairness and skill with horses legendary. But it was the personal stories people shared that meant the most to Tessa and her children. Stories of how Cole had helped someone in need, had been generous with his time and knowledge, had treated everyone with respect regardless of their background or status. After Cole's death, Tessa continued to live on the ranch, cared for by her children but still maintaining her independence. She tended Cole's grave, which was on a hill overlooking the ranch, and she would often sit there and talk to him, telling him about the family and the changes on the ranch. She lived another 8 years without him, long enough to see all her grandchildren grown and starting families of their own, long enough to hold her first great-great-grandchild. And when her time finally came, she went peacefully, surrounded by love, her last words a whisper of Cole's name. They buried her next to Cole on the hill, and at the funeral, Robert told the story his father had told so many times. About the rain, about the lost woman his father had found, about how bringing her inside had changed everything. About how she had brought him joy, and how that joy had rippled out through the family, creating the legacy they all now carried. The ranch continued through the generations, each one adding their own touches while maintaining the heart of what Cole and Tessa had built. The love story of the cowboy and the woman he found in the rain became family legend, told and retold, a reminder of how a single act of kindness can change the course of multiple lives. The house still stands in Yerington, Nevada, expanded and updated but still recognizably the same structure Cole built with his own hands. The barn still houses horses, trained with the patient methods Cole perfected and passed down through his descendants. And on the hill overlooking it all, 2 headstones stand side by side, marking the resting place of Cole Yates and Tessa Coleman Yates, beloved parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. Their story, which began with rain and despair, became one of love and joy, proving that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments. Cole had brought Tessa inside from the storm, offering shelter and kindness when she had nothing. And Tessa had brought him joy, filling his solitary life with love and laughter and family. Together, they had built something lasting, something beautiful, something that would continue long after they were gone. Their love story became the foundation of a family dynasty, a ranch that prospered, and a legacy of kindness and respect that echoed through the generations. It was a simple story in many ways, the tale of a cowboy and a woman caught in the rain. But it was also profound in its demonstration of how love could transform lives and create ripples that extended far into the future. And if you visit Yerington today and talk to the descendants of Cole and Tessa Yates, they will tell you that sometimes, on rainy days, they swear they can feel the presence of their ancestors, can sense the love that started it all. They will show you the ranch, point out the hill where Cole and Tessa rest, and they will tell you the story with pride and affection, keeping alive the memory of how their family began with a single act of compassion on a rainy day in 1882. The Yates Ranch remains a testament to what two people can build when they find each other at just the right moment, when kindness meets need, when love is allowed to flourish and grow. Cole and Tessa's story reminds us all that we never know when our lives might change completely, when a chance encounter might become the most important moment we ever experience. For Cole Yates, it was finding a woman sitting in the rain. For Tessa Coleman, it was being found. And for both of them, it was the beginning of everything that mattered, everything that lasted, everything that made their lives complete.